to this tutorial for the Happy-Go-Lucky checked pillow. In this video, we're actually going to be doing the small version of this. This one is the big one. This one's the large in the written pattern. So if you do have the written pattern, you'll notice that there's two sizes, large and small. And then there's also a modification as to if you want to make your own size. Like if you want to end up making like a rectangle, or if you want a bigger square, like a monster one, because this one's pretty big. So that is all within the pattern. I will put notes on the screen on how to make the large version if you are interested in making the big one as I'm making the small one. So I'll put modifications on the screen. So I think all you would need to do is pause the video, look at those notes, and then continue on. The instructions are pretty much the same for either size. If you're looking for how to make your own size, I will also put that somewhere on the screen somewhere. I'm sure it will pop up at one point during this tutorial. You'll need a 7mm crochet hook, or you can actually use an 8 depending on your tension. I have a rather loose tension, so I try to use smaller hooks with blanket yarn or super bulky yarn, and you'll be needing 2 colors or multiple colors. Like if you have some scrap yarn, that will work too. So pretty much I'm using the Chanel Yarn Cozy by Walmart. I've actually never bought this before, and so I'm actually really impressed with it. I did use some of it for a colorful pillow. So you'll need 2 colors. This one is Bernat blanket. I'm kind of embarrassed of how it looks right now, but this is how I bought it. Like I bought it without the condom. I call it a yarn condom, like the label. So it's a little bit of a mess, but it's gonna work. So this one's Bernat blanket. If you don't have, I think you need at least, for the small pillow, at least 200 yards per color to complete the pillow. If you don't seem to have enough of like just 2 colors, you could have fun with it and make more colors. So like have a primary color that has enough, which is this white, and then basically change the colors per row, like per checked row. That's also an option. So I'm going to clean off this table, probably open up the windows a little bit. It's kind of dark in here. I'm unsure why. It's kind of cloudy outside, so there is no sunlight. I'm unsure why I picked today to do this, but I did. Excuse me. You might need some, a buttload of polyfil if you're choosing to stuff your pillow with polyfil. This one I did stuff with polyfil. I will just say now, try to be mindful as to when you're stuffing it. You want to make sure that there's no clumps or it's like evenly filled. And the corners don't really need that much filling. It's supposed to be like a little relaxed. But if you don't have polyfil and you prefer to use like a pillow insert, you can totally use a pillow insert. I don't have any with me right now. The only pillow insert I have is 20 by 20 inches. And that's a little too big for this one. This one came out to about 17.5 inches wide, and I think it's like 16.5 inches tall. So you could muster in an 18-inch pillow insert into the large one, but it's just gonna be a good fit, and you might have to add an extra checked row. So keep that in mind. If you're wanting to use a pillow insert, you might wanna repeat the checked row one more time for it to actually fit the pillow insert, since this isn't a complete square. That is the other thing. Yeah, so for a small pillow, the one that we're doing for this video, I would recommend between a 14-inch and a 15-inch, or you might be able to get away with a 16-inch pillow insert, but don't quote me on that. The yarn actually has pretty good stretch, so it does get wide because you do have side walls on the pillow. But yeah, we're just gonna dive on in. I'm going to, like I said, clean up my mess here, and we'll get started. So I would just go and grab your hook and your yarn, and we're gonna have fun. Okay, so I have all my stuff that I need for the pillow. I also forgot to mention that you might want a stitch marker for this. The stitch marker will help you find the stitch or the space that you need for your rows. So let's go ahead and start. I'm going to use this mauve color as my main color, and then this blush color will be my contrast color. So what we're going to do first is we're going to chain loosely 31, and this is for the small pillow. So you should see on the screen for the large pillow modifications as well. So if you want to do the large, go ahead and start the large, but if you're doing a small like me, we're going to chain loosely 31. So I'm going to go ahead and just make my slip knot and loosely chain 31. All right, so I just loosely chained 31, and here is where your stitch marker will play a role. For basically row 1 and all the rest of the rows is we're working around the chain. So the first row is around the chain, and you'll see that the chain has 2 loops. So for the first set of stitches, we're going to be working on the outside loop, like away from us, and then for when we turn our work, we're going to be working on the chain loop that's towards us, but it'll be on the outside of us once we turn our work. And I know that might sound confusing, but I'll show you, don't worry. And then your stitch marker, you're going to want to mark your first chain that you made, and this is just going to help you find that space. So I'm going to mark the chain loop that's closest to me. So I'm going to put that in here. There you go. And this is how I know this is where my half double crochet is going to go when we turn our work. So just stay tuned, but put a stitch marker there for those who want it or need it. I would probably do it just so we don't miss that stitch. All right, so we're going to do 5 half double crochets with this main color, and we're going to start in the second chain from the hook. And you'll notice that I am yarning under. This is not necessary. If you want to yarn over, you could totally do that. So I'm going to do 5 half double crochets. On the 5th half double crochet, we're going to change colors. So 3, 4, and 5. Oh, 5. So I'm not going to complete this half double crochet, the 5th one. I'm going to change my color here. So I'm going to grab my contrast, and I'm going to loop it around my hook and pull through these 3 loops with my contrast color. I'll leave a long enough tail just so it doesn't unravel. And this is where I'm going to drop my main color behind my work. And I'm not going to crochet over it, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to give you a little note here. We're working on the right side of the pillow currently, so I'm going to always drop the yarn on the wrong side. So when we're working on the wrong side of the pillow, we're going to be dropping the yarn in front of us and not behind us. But when I get to that part, I'm sure you're going to understand. I could show you the pillow. Let me see if I can grab it. So technically this is the right side of the pillow where all your checks are pretty, and then the inside of the pillow has all of your yarn floats that you've dropped and then picked up when you needed it. So the inside of the pillow will look like this, and this is your wrong side, and then this is your right side. Hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, right now it will in a little bit once we get to row 2. Let me throw that across. Okay, now we're going to do 5 half double crochets with this contrast color. I'm going to crochet over my tail a little bit. Just so it's secure. So 3, 4, and then 5. And I'm going to drop that yarn behind, and I'm going to change my color. So I'm going to pick up my main color and pull through. So this is what it looks like on the back. So it's going to have like that little float like I showed you on the other pillow. So I'm going to keep that yarn behind. Ooh, it got twisted. And so we're going to continue this pattern. So we're going to do 5 half double crochets in the main, 5 half double crochets in the contrast, and we're going to continue that until we get to our last chain over here. And make sure that you change your color on that 5th half double crochet. Ooh. And you'll notice I'm working only on that loop that's away from me. So I still have the loop of the chain towards me right here that we're going to be working on when we turn our work, or rotate our work, I should say. So that's 5, Sorry, my hands are freezing, so I'm like kind of shaky. Like I took my jacket off and I'm a little cold, but I'll get warm in a sec. So continue this until you reach your last chain. Picking up the main color, dropping the contrast color. Ooh. And so your last the last 5 half double crochets should be your contrast color. So if your last 5 half double crochets is not your contrast color, you either chained too much or you skipped a chain by mistake, and just go back and check and maybe count your stitches. 3, 4, and then 5. All right, so we're going to change colors here on this 5th one. So this is kind of what it should be looking like so far. And the back of my work looks like this. So we're going to switch colors here. And then in this same space that we just put this half double crochet in, the contrast color, we're going to put 5 half double crochets into this same space with the main color. So I'm going to go ahead and put 5 in there. And this is technically an increase, and this is the only time you will increase in the pattern. Or you are going to increase again on this side, but this is the only row that has an increase. 4 and then 5. So once you get that 5th half double crochet, don't finish it with the main color. Switch over to the contrast. And this is what it should look like so far. So it's going to have like a little curve end here at the end. And so this is where your stitch marker plays a role. So you're going to notice that you did mark that stitch, that first chain on the loop, like that was towards us. That is where your first half double crochet is going to go, and you're going to want to make sure that it's stacked on top of these half double crochets. So I'm going to go ahead. I took that stitch marker out because I know it was going to be in my way. I have a tail here, so I'm just going to move it out of my way. Sorry. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put my first half double crochet of those 5 right on top of each other, so they should stack. And then continue the 5 of each color, like of the main and the contrast, and just make sure that you are staying on top of each stitch. So make sure you're stacking. So I'm going to go ahead and change colors here. So far this is what it's looking like. And then I'm going to continue this all the way down until I reach the last chain. 2, 3, 4, 5. My hands are still frozen, sorry. I'm gonna bring my contrast yarn. Ooh, I slipped. That usually happens with me with blanket yarn. It doesn't help that my hands are frozen, so. I think I just skipped this. I skipped the chain. Look at me making mistakes. This is usual for me on my tutorials. 1, there it goes, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So you should notice that your colors should be stacking on top of one another, and this is good. This is what it's supposed to look like. If they're not stacking correctly, then you might have to skip a stitch or chain the loop. So I would just frog and do it again and make sure that they're lining up. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that was my 5th one. I'm gonna change, drop it behind, grab my contrast color, continue my rhythm here. Drop and grabbing. All right, I think I'm on my, I'm on my last 5 here. 2, 3. My yarn is coming up to me. 4, and then 5. Just make sure you kind of get it in that space. So this is what it's looking like, row 1. We have one more set of stitches to do, which is the increase like we have here on this side. So we're going to go ahead and change our color. I'm going to drop that one behind, change our color, and then we're going to put 5 half double crochets in that same spot where that last half double crochet is. So basically what we did over here, we're just going to do it over here and keep it symmetrical. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 5 in here, 2, and you may have to stretch a little bit like your stitches so you can see them, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so I'm going to finish this half double crochet with the contrast color, because what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch to the first half double crochet we did for this row, chain 1, and then we're going to turn. So when we chain 1 and turn, we're going to be working on this side with this color. So you want to slip stitch with the color you're going to be working with next. So we're going to be working with the contrast color next. So I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that first half double crochet we made. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to turn my work. And just make sure your yarn is not all tangled up. So now that we turned, we're working on the wrong side of the pillow. So now we're going to just basically stack our stitches. So each checked row is made up of 3 rows. So 3 rows tall by 5 half double crochet wide. So we're going to do 3 rows of the same color on top of each other. So I'm going to go ahead and do my first half double crochet here, and this might be helpful for people. So for this first half double crochet, go ahead and mark this stitch. That way it doesn't get overlooked, because you kind of sometimes just looking at it when you're coming around, you may not notice that this is a chain 1 and like at the start of the new row. So go ahead and mark that stitch so you know that that's where you're going to slip stitch and turn. So I'm going to go ahead and continue stacking my colors on top of one another. I hope that I'm explaining this right, because sometimes it's a little difficult. So now that I'm going to be switching colors here, I'm not going to drop my yarn behind like we were doing on the right side. I'm going to put my yarn in front, and I'm going to hold it here. And then I'm going to find my main color, and I'm just going to loop over and change. So now we're going to just basically make sure we're putting the yarn that is not in the working, like not working, in front of us, not behind the work, because we're working on the wrong side. So now that I finished the main color and I need to switch to my contrast, I'm going to move the main color in front, hold it with my thumb, or if you want to, grab my contrast yarn if it wants to come, loop it over my hook and pull through. So working on the wrong side can be a little tricky, especially because you have to think about where your yarn is going to go. But once you get the hang of it, it'll be mindless. So I'm going to go ahead and change my yarn again, put to the front, I hold it with my thumb. You don't have to if you don't want to. Grab my main color, pull through. And I'm going to continue this all the way until I get to my stitch marker. And then we're going to, slip stitch, chain 1, and turn. And then we'll be working on the right side. So from here on out, it's pretty repetitive. Just noting that you're working on the wrong side or the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this until we have 3 rows total. Let me see if I can show you what it looks like so far. I'm just going to pause right here so I can show you what my back is looking like so far. Okay, so far this is what the wrong side's looking like. It has all my little floats, and then this is what the front's looking like so far. So we're going to basically finish 3 rows of the same color on top of each other. So right now I'm working on row 2, and so I'm going to do this once more. But when we get to the end, to our stitch marker, we're going to slip stitch and then turn. And I'm sure we have to change colors. So I'll slow down when I get to that part so I can show you. I know this might look a little funky and a little, like a lot of, what's the word, like yarn everywhere, but there's honestly no easier way for me to show you this. I mean, I could have made it in worsted weight, but I felt like that defeated the purpose. So I'm going to continue this until we get to the stitch marker. And my husband's home today, so I think at any moment he can just walk through that door because he's currently outside taking our Christmas lights down. He's gonna be like, oh, she's recording. So that might happen. And if it does, it does. There's really not much I could do about that. So almost to my stitch marker here. And the yarn ball is creeping over here. Move you away. Move yarn in front. Switching colors. And if you feel like I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video, or I know that there is a setting that you can slow it down. All right, I got to my stitch marker here. So I know I'm going to be slip stitching to this first half double crochet and turning, and I want to do that with the color I'm working with next. So I'm working with this mauve color next because when I slip stitch and turn, that is the color that's going to be first. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this half double crochet. I'm going to slip stitch into where my stitch marker is. Chain one, and then I'm going to turn. So now we're working on the right side, and this is basically what it should be looking like so far. So it kind of looks like a little boat. So once you keep adding more rows, it's going to take shape. But this is basically what the wrong side looks like, and this is what my right side looks like. So far so good. My little tails, tuck those in. All right, so now we're working row 3, and this is the final row for this checked row before we have to swap the colors for the pattern. So let's go ahead and mark our first half double crochet we did with our stitch marker, so we know that's where we're going to stop. And we're going to continue this pattern, stacking the colors. And now that we're working on the right side, our yarn could be dropped in the back. And then just change colors every 5th half double crochet. So I'm gonna probably speed this part up and then get to my stitch marker, and then I'll show you how to change colors for your next set of checks. Okay, so I've made it to my stitch marker, and we're going to basically change colors since we just did 3 rows for the check. So this is how tall your check should be, and this is how wide it should be. So it should be 5 half double crochet wide by 3 rows tall. So now we're going to switch colors because we're going to be basically stacking the opposite color on top. So now I see that I just ended up with my contrast color on this 3rd row. So when I slip stitch and turn, I'm going to need to use the main color on top. So I'm going to switch colors here. I'm switching colors to my main color, and I'm going to slip stitch into my first half double crochet I made where the stitch marker is. I'm going to slip stitch, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to turn. Now we're working on the wrong side, and now we're going to basically put our half double crochets on top of the opposite color. So we're starting our second set of checks. Oh, and if you want to mark your first half double crochet, I don't seem to do that, but I'll do this for you guys. So mark your first half double crochet you made, that way you know that's where the row ends. And then now we're just stacking the opposite color on top. So I'm going to just move this towards me. I'm going to hold this main color, grab my contrast color. Just make sure after every 3 rows you change what your main color is and what your contrast color is. So hold that, change my color here. It keeps following me. Move that, move you away. Okay, changing my color, and I'm going to just continue this until I reach my stitch marker. And then basically that is your how to make up the pillow. So we're always going to slip stitch and chain 1 and turn, but just make sure that you're slip stitching with the yarn you're going to be using next. But I'm going to finish up this row and show you what it looks like. Move that yarn in the front because we're working on the wrong side. See, I have to remind myself too when I'm working on the wrong side to make sure the yarn comes in front of me. All right, I'm here at almost at my stitch marker. Okay, and I'm gonna complete this half double crochet with this contrast color because I know when I slip stitch to this first half double crochet where my stitch marker is and turning, I will be working with the contrast color. So I'm going to continue that. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out. I'm going to slip stitch, chain 1, and then I'm going to turn. And then now you're basically going to make 3 rows of each color. Well, not each color. You're going to repeat this row twice more. And then you're going to, when you chain or slip stitch and chain 1 and turn, you're going to change. And make sure you get this checkered pattern. Let me see. So this is 3 rows, this is 3 rows, this is 3 rows, and notice that the color is basically the checkered pattern. So you're just going to change what color goes on top of each other. But we're only using two colors on this one. So whenever you're done with 3 rows, you're going to swap and make sure that the main color is on top of the contrast color for that row, and then continue that for 3 rows. I hope that made sense. But once I finish this pillow, I hope I threw that off the screen. I can't see my viewfinder, so once I finish the check rows for this pillow, I'll report back and show you what it looks like. Okay, hi friends. So I went ahead and finished the 7 checked rows for my happy-go-lucky pillow, and I do have an insert for this tutorial. I figured that would be, you know, nice to do. That way I don't have to like fight with polyfil. I do want to say that I do prefer polyfil personally. So like if you want to stuff your pillow and have it nice and floofy, polyfil will give you that. So like this one is, wow, that's very close to the camera. This one is like a pretty floofy. I really love the polyfil look, but I figured just for the sake of the tutorial, I'll show you with a liner. That way it's just a little easier. But let me just toss it over to the side. Okay, so basically once you had finished your however many checked rows that you wanted to finish, you're going to end not really on the center of like the side walls. You're basically going to end basically in the front right here. So I can probably undo this just so I can show you. I joined it with like without noticing that it was finished. So wow, that was really tight. Let me see if I can get that out. Okay, so for me, I like to switch back to my main color to finish off the pillow. This is totally your choice. You should have ended on a contrast color if you ended on the 7th check row like I just did. So I'm going to go ahead and just slip stitch like I have been normally. And I'm going to slip stitch loosely, like that's pretty important. So I'm going to slip stitch loosely onto where basically where you have been joining the whole entire pattern. And I'm going to turn my work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch 3 to the left, just so I can be in the center of the pillow, like on the outer edges. So I'm going to slip stitch 3, 1, 2, 3, like so. And I'm going to turn again, turning the pillow once more here. And then now I do have these fancy little binding clips. They're sewing binding clips. I'm unsure what the proper term for them is, but I know that they use this for sewing. So I'm going to use these clips to hold my pillow shut. You don't need to do this. You could just hold the pillow as just for the sake of this tutorial. And you know, for for myself, I prefer to use these just so I can make sure that my checks are lining up. So let me just shove that in there real fast. I'm going to close the pillow top, and I'm going to just use these clips to hold it for me, making sure that my checks are lining up. So line up the checks just so when you are closing it, it is even. All right, that should be good. Let's hope. And I'll just do it over here. Okay, so you have 2 options here. You could like whip stitch this shut, like you can fasten this off if you'd like and just whip stitch this shut with a darning needle, or if you're anything like me who doesn't want to sew by any means, I just rather crochet it closed. This is the part I'll show you. So I'm going to slip stitch all the way down the top of the pillow, and I'm going to use the basically like the back loops. Is it the back loops? No, the front loops. I use the front loops of the panel that's closest to me and then the back loops of the panel that's away from me. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So now that you're pretty much at the crease, like at the crease, I need to find my words. Now that you're at the like center of the outer edge, go ahead and just make sure that these 2 pinks, like where your contrast color are, and just make sure that you are slip stitching in the correct spots. So I'm going to use that front loop of the side that's closest to me and the back loop of the one that's farther away from me. I'm just going to slip stitch and continue that here. And I'm basically going to continue that all the way down, just making sure that all your stitches are stacking up just the way they should be. and nice and even. And again, like I said, you can just fasten off and whip stitch this close if you prefer. But I actually like the look of the slip stitch close. It gives it a cute little top look, like a finished look, I guess. I don't mind whip stitching it. I've done that on a couple pillows I had made last year, and it very much is the same. It just doesn't have like this finished braided like look on the top. So I'm gonna continue this all the way down. Ooh, that half double crochet is super tight. Let's see if I could fix this. I did lose a game of yarn chicken when I was trying to finish up this pillow, so I do have this little loose thing, loosey-goosey guy, was just me adding in yarn like without paying attention. So let me just fix that. All right, I fixed it. Okay, so pretty simple to finish and close, and honestly it's the cutest like top edge, I think. So let's see, there is another way that you can close this. If you could probably use like the invisible join. I'm unsure how to do that personally, but I know that there's some probably tutorials on YouTube on how to do that. I know one of my testers did use the invisible join, and it's super cute. It's very seamless. It doesn't have like this finished look on the top like mine is going to have, but very pretty, very pretty. So if you do decide that you want to try something else, you totally can. You got to be happy with how it looks, right? So this may not be your cup of tea. So I'm going to keep going until I reach the end. Ooh. Okay. Ooh. There you go. And I did have enough. Voila. All right, and that is the finish. That's how you basically finish off the top of your pillow. And it's so cute. This pillow insert is not too bad. I'm not saying that it's terrible. I just prefer a floofier look. So if you're looking for something a little bit more puffier and floofier, definitely use some polyfil. But if you're okay with just some sort of like a decorative piece that you don't are going to use for your head or anything like that, a pillow insert is a good alternative. So that is how you close up the happy-go-lucky checked pillow. And I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy that you've watched all the way until the end. I mean, I hope that you're happy with your end results. I know I am. I have a couple of them working on. I actually have this scrappy like color pillow in the works. This is the same size as this one. I just finished it, honestly. I just have to go stuff it up and close it. But there's always the option of using some scrap yarn. Both sides of this don't look the same. So there's no rhyme or reason for it. But if you have any scrap yarn that you want to use for this happy-go-lucky pillow, you can totally do that. But I'm going to end this here. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. And if you did, totally give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below if you finished your happy-go-lucky pillow. And I will see you guys later. Bye.